So, last but not least, Tom Fürstner. He's a research scientist and university professor at the University of Applied Arts in Vienna. He is also founder and CTO of RIDDLE&CODE, a leading European blockchain hardware company. As an entrepreneur coming from a University of Arts, he's an Austrian best practice example showing that you do not need to study main subject to found a company. It's a great pleasure to have you with us. Tom, the stage is yours.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Just a question because I don't see it. Can you see my screen already?
No, we can hear you and see you, and we can see your screen as well. Yes, go ahead.
Perfect. Okay. So, RIDDLE&CODE is a quite young company, so it's 4 years old, but we are really productive since 2.5 years. It was founded by myself and Alexander Koppel, who is my partner in crime. And it started out with a very, very simple idea. So when Bitcoin started, yes, its inception was in 2009. It was very clear that it's incredibly interesting what you can do with digital assets. Yes, you manage them in a completely new way. You create value in a new way. You redefine what assets are, what is value, what is monetization. It was quite disruptive, and we still feel more or less this shockwave. But the special point, which was of interest for us, was slightly different. We thought, wow, there is something which helps us to manage digital assets in a completely new way. But what happens if you use the same technology and you start to manage physical objects? So, and this is, how can I say, it's a little bit of blocker in your head. So many years people simply didn't understand what we were talking about, but it's quite easy. It's a little bit like an epiphany, right? So we thought naturally a physical object cannot be brought and written into a blockchain, but very well the blockchain can be brought to the physical object. Yeah, and it's about this very simple fact that all the projects which were built and products which were built by RIDDLE&CODE the recent years, yes, fall back and rely on this idea, bringing the blockchain back to the physical object. And once you do this, you open up a complete new business space. And how this looks like, and to envision it and to exemplify it, I will show you some stuff. So one of the projects we are operating is enabling of micro investments into machines and machine infrastructure, which are high yield return projects. Yeah? So projects normally as an ordinary human, you're not allowed or not capable to invest in. So let's take a huge solar power plant producing 2 gig kilowatt hours, 2 gigawatt hours per peak. And things like this are normally done in a classical public-private venture. I don't know, the state of Austria interacting with Siemens or Bosch and so on. And we said, okay, let's try to turn this into a real product for real people. And we tried to convince several utility companies. In the end, we succeeded with Wien Energie, which became our partner. And we started to use our technology and our ideas and blockchain to create an investment proposal and a micro investment tool for solar power. Okay, so how did we do it? We've built dedicated hardware. This is where we start. So I told you the trick is that we bring the blockchain technology to the physical object. We use something you know from your everyday living. It's smart card technology. So the technology you have in your credit cards, in your access cards, and in many other interesting small devices. Yeah, meanwhile, it's part of every phone. So this smart card technology is in reality a very dedicated chip or chipset. So it's a chipset which is optimized to run cryptographic primitives. So mathematical operations which are there to prove that certain strings are valid or not. So the moment you do this, yes, you can, and you connect it with a physical object, the physical object becomes a reactive object. So it can answer certain questions. For example, who am I? Who owns me? What can I do? am I connected to certain rights? Am I connected to certain attributes? So the object really changes what it is. And naturally, if these attributes are related to business aspects, yeah, the object becomes itself some kind of business environment. So we have built this hardware. It's these days mainly about dedicated components of advanced risk machines and RISC-V chipsets, using some more elaborate chipsets concerning FRAM and MRAM. So these are random access memories based on ferromagnetics or magnetics. We do this because the read and write cycles are not limited. This means we can guarantee whatever is written to this chip, yes, it stays active and valid not only for 5 to 10 years, but potentially for, I don't know, yes, up to 100 years. Which is important because these chips hold value, yes, up to millions of euros or dollars and so on. So that's the example I'm talking about. It's a PV-Anlage, so photovoltaic solar power plant built by Wien Energie in Vienna. So it's this 2 gigakilowatt peak plant. And there you can own a solar panel. Yeah. So owning a solar panel means you have the right that the kilowatt hours produced by this plant, yes, you can either draw the energy for yourself, so you could store it to your own battery system, or you can use the value created by the kilowatt hours to pay your own power consumption, or you can send it back to a special blockchain contract and become a micro shareholder of the plant. So you see what happens there is a complete new kind of business emerges. Yeah. So normally you are just a consumer of power. Now you're an owner of a power plant, or you are a shareholder in a power plant, and you can either have a business benefit for yourself, or you can enlarge your ownership of the plant. Or because all this is tokenized, you can even use the tokens and swap them against other tokens or against other assets or other value propositions. So it's an on-ramp and off-ramp into a new economy. So I told you, all this is related to chipsets. We produce the components practically. So we produce not the chips, but we produce the boards and the board designs ourselves. They are produced in Leipzig. We interconnect all these things, and then we attach these chipsets I'm talking about, so these secure elements and the secure data storage, to really any kind of device you can imagine. So this is a so-called smart logger. A smart logger is a certified device which measures the throughput of kilowatt hours. But we also connect them to classical smart meters. So by Landis and Gear and similar things. We also connect them to car systems. So that's a classical car area or car controller area network chipset. So this means all the data produced in a car can also be tokenized. So we did this for Daimler and for BMW. And the interesting thing is, so we connect this hardware to a machine, then the machine becomes a data center. Then we unify the signals produced by the machine, yes, give these signals economic value, and then we start the complete business development around it. Yeah? It might be about investment, like micro investments in a solar power plant, but it could also be the right to participate in a return of investment and so on. So the things are really endless what you can do with this. And you see it quite well. So there's an asset. Yeah. So the asset is about the kilowatt hours. The asset has already certain owners. Yeah. This asset is related to Wien Energie. It's about a photovoltaic panel. So one out of the solar power park you saw. It's a create transaction. So there we attest that there's a panel and it's owned by a person. We don't know. So everything is GDPR compliant. And it more or less attests that the owner of this panel has the right to draw or to be compensated for the energy produced by his panels throughout the day. So, but it doesn't stop there. So first we attest who has the right or the drawing right. Then we attest under which circumstances a settlement or a transaction is created. So we say, okay, the velocity period. So we wait 240 minutes. Then we take the measurements of these devices. Then we turn it into kilowatt hours, and then we make transactions where the value of the kilowatt hours is sent to some kind of account. Yeah. We take care that the amount of units is not too much, so there have to be certain consistency criteria fulfilled, and so on. So the data have to come from trusted machines. So you cannot breach the system anymore, because the cryptographic security is also protecting the device identity, the device data, and it's even protecting the signals and data sent from one device to the other, or from the device to a backend. And then there are many other things. So it's not only this, it's also you can only send the values then to dedicated other accounts. So the whole system is very transparent. It's very well audited. So in fact, it's audited in real time. Yeah. So all these financial transactions happen in accordance to privacy laws and GDPR, especially in Europe, but they also happen in accordance to regulatory laws. So whatever happens there is more or less accepted in Austria by the FMA, in Switzerland by the FINMA, in Germany by BaFin, and so on. And you see the data then there. So this power plant, for example, has 50 main investors. So the main investors are listed here. It's just a hex number. And these 50 beneficiaries are allowed to have a steady income from the flow of the production of kilowatt hours. So the interesting thing is that the plant is not only producing data, the data also checked for consistency. So it's impossible that you fake a panel and send simply some data or wrong signals into the system to cheat the system and to get the tokens back. That's not possible. So not only the device and the data are secured, also the structure and the syntax of the data are secured. And all this is then taken and it's turned into so-called transactions. So what you see here is a classical Bitcoin transaction. So, and the interesting thing here is we have this description of the signal of the machine, which is assigned by the machine itself, sent to the blockchain, settled there as a compiled contract, and then it results in a valid transaction where someone earns money from being invested into an individual solar panel. And it even doesn't stop there, because the purpose of the network is that this endeavor to produce green energy should work as efficiently as possible, that we not only take kilowatt hour signals and payment signals and value signals, we also take signals, for example, telling us whether the front panel of the LED is clean or not, so the degree of dirtiness. And if the dirtiness level is below a certain factor for 1 week, then we reward the maintainer. So there is really nothing out there which you could compare where you would have this new kind of token economy, creating completely new chains of value and new business models and so on. So at the end, this is the weird backend dial part, but also the very powerful one. Yeah. So naturally, to succeed, you have to have the right front end. So we take all the time this sophisticated hardware, the drivers, the software, and connect it together with some kind of gamification interfaces, where we then show to visualize what's going on in the system, to inform the customer or the user what's really going on in the system without being bothered by the complexity which is behind. But you see already in these interfaces that we can give really an incredible amount of interesting information. And that's another interesting thing, because we have so many signals we visualize, and so many signals that become valuable because they result in financial transaction. Yeah, that's also a fantastic feedback system. So people really know more about the energy consumption, energy flow when they use a system like this. Yeah, and that's interesting, because if you tokenize machine and machine results, yeah, you completely redefine what it means to be a consumer today. And not only this, because you have so many new value propositions. Yeah, it's also a fantastic way, for example, to finance new infrastructures which are necessary to produce energy and distribute energy in a more efficient way. Yeah, and this example, as you see it here, we have the flow of energy through an hour. There you see exactly whether something is coming from the solar power plant where you invested, or your panel, whether it's coming from a battery system, so a storage system, or whether it comes live from the regular power system. Yeah, and this is our example for energy. We did more or less very similar projects also for the German automotive industry. We did it for aerospace. We did it for luxury industries. We did it for the Swiss banking industry, and so on. So all in all, we had around 39 projects the recent 3 years. And the interest into the technology and the setup and our thinking behind token economy around high yield or high yield machines and machine infrastructure becomes more and more important. Okay, so to tell you a little bit, doing something like this, completely new, you start to talk, everybody thinks you're a lunatic, but you know it's okay. Yes, and you follow ideas, as we heard right now, it's not an easy task. It's really not an easy task. And it becomes even more complicated the moment you start to be successful. So how can I explain this? The point is, the moment real money is involved, yeah, the situation are changing dramatically. So a founder team is driven by its purpose and by its ideas and by its vision. Then it becomes successful if it can communicate and transfer this vision. And then it becomes even more successful if it has a certain excellence in execution. Yeah. So these are the basic necessities. But you always work and cooperate in a group and with other peoples. So this means you have to keep at pace with everything and everybody who is working with you and who is interacting with you. And in the field of cryptography, token economy, blockchain, and so on, this is very, very difficult. It's really difficult. First, there is almost nobody out there who has a real academic education about it. So cryptographers are not, it's not, how can I say, it's not a curriculum at these days. It will take a while. So then when we onboard people, it takes us up to 6 to 9 months till we can start to talk to them in a productive way, that they really understand what we do and what you have to take care of. Then normally they stay maybe 1.5 years with us, then they fully understand it, and then they get hired by American companies, which can pay salaries which are really completely impossible for us. Or what also quite often happens, to operate all these systems and to interact with other blockchain systems, we have to hold a lot of crypto assets ourselves. Yeah, so we educate the people how to invest and interact with crypto assets. So last 4 people we lost was because they were so successful in operating crypto assets privately, so for themselves. Yeah. So these are, how can I say, these are really challenges for us, because the classic setup of a company, from at least my experience today, doesn't work anymore. Yeah? So you cannot, so I pay you well, and we have certain rules, and we have certain restrictions, and you have certain working times, and so on. You can forget all this. Yeah? The only thing you can find partners in crime, or real partners, is by having a purpose and a vision you can share with all the people around you, which work with you towards a common goal. That's really the only way. And not only this, you also have to reconsider classical payments, salaries, and so on, because this is also not working anymore. So you have to find completely different ways to compensate people, to make them part of a company, and so on and so on. So from my experience, it's a very exciting time because really things are changing so fast and in such a dramatic way with high impact. And it's a struggle, and it's a fruitful experience every day, yes, to move forward and to see where all this is going with the pandemic problems, with the craziness of the crypto industry, and what else happens these days. Okay, that's it from my side. Thank you very much.